Good morning and happy National Signing Day to you all. I'm Alex Heinert coming to you live from our MidcoSN studios in Grand Forks, North Dakota, a place that has been transformed for the third year running into Signing Day headquarters for UND football. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll be bringing you wall-to-wall coverage of North Dakota's initial signees in the class of 2019, including highlights, analysis, and conversations with coaches and regional high school football experts about this recruiting class and how they fit into the current Fighting Hawks roster. Let's take a look now live at our MidcoSN conference room. Head coach Bubba Schweigert and his staff have been here since the early morning hours, fielding texts and emails from an excited group of future Fighting Hawks that have signed their national letters of intent to join this program. There's a fired up group of coaches in our conference room right now. We'll be hearing a lot from that crew coming up over the next hour. Now, if you recall, last year, the NCAA changed the timeline for Division I football recruiting to include an early signing period that begins today and runs through Friday. The second half of signing day will still take place on the first Wednesday in February, but the main event for a lot of programs around the country, including UND, is today. And that's been a good thing in the mind of North Dakota Director of Athletics, Bill Chaves.
The bloodline to any program is your recruits, but to be able to do it before the holidays, I think is incredibly important, not only for the coaching staff, but the prospective student athlete as well. Gives them a chance, you know what, to really enjoy the holidays and think about what they're going to do the second half of their senior year in high school. Our coaches are working over and over again. They're prepping for the year ahead, they're prepping for opponents, and then they're prepping to bring in their next class, always. And so recruiting never stops.
Recruiting a never-ending process, to be sure. Well, before we tell you about the new class of Fighting Hawks, let's take a look back at what transpired this past season for UND football. Now, after a hard-luck, injury-plagued campaign a year ago, North Dakota bounced back in 2018, finishing with a winning record for the third time in the last 4 years and just missing out on a spot in the FCS playoffs. But still, instead of running it back for the 2019 season, the program has revamped the offensive coaching staff, promoting receivers coach and former UND quarterback Danny Freund to offensive coordinator. Now, Freund handled play-calling duties in the past, and he won't be the only difference fans will see on the field for 2019. There are a number of impact seniors who are moving on to the real world, and some of that group you're going to see right now, a pretty important group that has been a big part of this program over the last 4 or 5 years, starting with John Santiago, a guy that was a 3-time All-American for this program in the backfield, finishes his UND career 3rd on the all-time rushing list, tied for 5th in rushing touchdowns. Same thing with Brady Oliveira, his backfield mate, top 10 in both of those categories as well. 2 all-conference guys moving on offense. And then defensively, Tanner Palmberg, a captain in the linebacker spot, graduating, as well as Austin Cieslak, a great defensive end from in-state. Cieslak, along with his defensive line partner Tank Harris, moving on to the real world, as is Dion Harris, a guy that was an All-American 2 years ago when he led the country in interceptions. A lot of holes to fill on both sides of the football. In total, 16 seniors from this year's squad graduating. And we had a chance to catch up with a few members of that senior class recently for the season finale of our web series Day by Day. Here now are their thoughts on their time in Grand Forks.
Those 4 years have just flew by so fast, and that's one thing I would preach to the young guys is just cherish every moment.
You always have some older guys come in like it's going to go by quick, take advantage of it, and you honestly never understand until you've done your full time.
The last 4 years just went by extremely fast, and but definitely the most memorable years of my life though, for sure.
Things that really stand out to me at UND is just the unending support I got from everybody in Grand Forks, not only as a player, but as a student athlete too.
You meet a lot of the fans, a lot of the supporters and people like that throughout the community, and you see how much the program means to them. It's just crazy to think how much support we have and all of that, and being able to play for those people is what means the most.
I just want to thank the coaching staff for believing in me and trusting me, and it's been a great 4 years, and I could talk about this place for hours.
I've enjoyed every moment of it, and the fact that UND's been the group that's taken me in and allowed me to have a career here, put me on the field, and give me an education, I wouldn't take it back for a second.
Missed that installment of Day by Day or any of this past season's episodes, you can binge watch the whole season on MidcoSN's YouTube channel. Well, with that group of seniors moving on, there were areas on both sides of the ball that Bubba Schweigert and his staff needed to address with this class, specifically in the trenches and in the backfield. As you look at positions of need, you talk about, as you see John again, you look at the position groups here again, offensive line, graduating a guy like Grant Applin, 24 career starts, a big part of the interior of this group the last several seasons. We told you about John Santiago and Brady Oliveira moving on. And the defensive line as well, Austin C. Slack, Tank Harris, Steve Greer as well, guys that have just been staples up front for this team. You know, UND needed to address some of those spots. And as we take a look at the signees for the 2019 class for the first time, those are the areas that they did just that. Starting on offense, skill position guys. Luke Skokna, a kid out of Illinois that has a lot of speed, a gadget type guy that can be a great running back for this team in the future. On the edges, Adam Zavalny, one of 7 in-state kids coming to the program. Kristen Cochran, another kid with speed, but also a complete receiver out of Michigan from the Detroit area. And then another Minnesota transfer coming down, Dominic London, a gopher guy from the state of Minnesota, just like James Johannesson before him, coming in to bolster that backfield. Not just the skill guys, of course, on offense, but the guys up front. 5 total offensive linemen coming in, along with Billy Revere, a big-time tight end out of Wayzata in the Twin Cities. Revere, a kid with bloodlines that tie him to this program. You can see, again, the size from these kids. A lot of guys that have the potential to either play inside or outside, and a group that UND is really high on. Jacob Linderman, a kid from Roseau, Adam Neustell from Gwinner, North Dakota, who played for Milner North Sargent. And then also Ben Jansen, you see him, a kid from Wisconsin. Colin Lavelle out of Colorado. EJ Langstaff from West Fargo, one of 2 West Fargo players joining this program. So that group, again, making their commitment on the offensive side of the ball, 9 total on that side. And then you look at the defense as well. Up front, an area of need for UND and an area where they addressed well with getting guys with size and speed, both from the Chicago area, Isaac Moore, Elijah Beach, but also from in-state as well. Tanner Thorson's a kid from Bismarck Century, had a great career there for the Patriots, one of the best programs in state. Stephen Keach, a kid from up in the Duluth area from Two Harbors, Minnesota, who played in the interior on the D-line and on the outside, 6'5", 225, another guy with a lot of upside and a chance to grow into that body a little bit more. 6 guys on the defensive front. You see the rest of that list continue. Luke Lennon, of course, the nephew of Dale Lennon, who was a part of this program for a long time as a head coach. And then, he's, again, a guy that's going to be flexible, an athlete that can play either on offense or defense. Several linebackers making their commitment as well. A number of these guys, Josh Navratil, Caden Wolski, Luke Herzog, who played offense as well as defense in high school, but UND slots them in as being defensive guys that will fit this 3-4 scheme. And then in the secondary as well, you can't have too many secondary guys. Hayley Buchholz, a kid that just finished playing in an All-American game down in Texas earlier this week out of Fargo Shanley. Jason Coley from Illinois. Samuel Ford, a guy that just committed out of Virginia, who's got ties to this area with some connections in Iowa, a big-time recruit there. And then Matt Kushel from Cold Spring, just a teammate of Matt Woletzko, who made a big impact as a true freshman last year, joining from the St. Cloud area as well. So that's the group, at least from position group by position group, and a chance now to talk with the guy that helped bring them in, the head coach, Bubba Schweigert, entering year number 6 as the head man in this program. Bubba, first of all, congratulations on a great signing day. Happy to see all those boxes get checked early this morning.
Well, thanks, Alex. You know, we started this process almost 2 years ago, and I just thought our staff did a great job of identifying guys early and establishing relationships early. And of course, we always start right in our backyard. Yeah. We think that's very important with the North Dakota and Minnesota guys, and they're going to be a part of our team that we consider the heart and soul, and then the arms and legs. You got to reach at farther distances to get those guys to fill in the spots, and we did that in places, Michigan, and went as far as Virginia, all those places, you know, just to really complete the class. And we're in the Illinois, we did very well in the Chicago area, and I just thought our staff did a tremendous job at really keeping in touch with the guys. We had a lot of early commitments and hung on to those commitments.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, this is the 2nd year of this early signing period. Now that you've had kind of a year under your belt to see how this goes, did you change the way that you wanted to recruit these kids, knowing that this is kind of how it went last year? Do we want to change that strategy, or was it kind of the same as last season?
Well, it was similar, but I think when you go through the process one time, you can adjust and you can really work hard to get the guys to say, hey, we want to sign you in December. And you set that tone early and stay with that message, because that's really what you want to do is sign as many guys as you can to fill out your class and improve your football team and take advantage of the early signing date. And I believe we did that, and we're always going to keep recruiting. You know, it never ends. You're always going to have to improve your roster, and we're already starting on the 2020 as we speak. Yeah,
you can see that, you know, this program, like a lot of the programs in the Midwest, have done a good job of front loading. You see 22 freshmen sign along with the transfer in Dominic London from Minnesota. What is the benefits of being able to get that many guys in early? I'm assuming there are quite a few, but why do you go with that approach?
Well, I think you want to get commitments, and you want to get guys so you know where your roster is at this point, and you have, you know, the end of December and early January to develop a strategy how you continue to recruit, whether you have guys that you want to sign in February or when you're moving forward and getting into the 2020 recruiting, which we are going to be heavily into that starting in January.
Yeah, it's always a process, isn't it? It's crazy stuff. When you look at the group of guys that you brought in, and you mentioned it, it's a good mix of kids from in-state, kids from Minnesota, kids from around the region, but also expanding that footprint a little bit towards the Great Lakes area. What would sort of be kind of the common thread as you look at this class that you've brought in, these 23 young men?
Well, one thing that I think really helped us when we made the announcement we're going into the Missouri Valley Football Conference, which we're very, very excited about that, and we appreciated the Big Sky and loved the Big Sky, and you know, they gave us a home for years, but going into the Missouri Valley really fits our university and is best for our university. So what really we look at is we did well in the Midwest, which we need to do well in the Midwest. When we started this process in 2014, we wanted to recruit in our footprint that has been good for the University of North Dakota for years. Yet we were playing out west. Now we're recruiting in our footprint and playing in the Midwest. And to get guys from North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Chicago, those areas, really important to us. We can get into Iowa now because we're going to play down in those areas, and you know, we get into Kansas City and St. Louis and some of those areas too, and we're going to get exposure in those areas because we're going to play there.
Yeah, it makes a big difference when you are playing in these kids' backyards like you will be. Not maybe necessarily next season as much, but 2020 and that transition to the Valley not far off. That's exciting, obviously, for this program, but still one more year as an independent playing a Big Sky schedule. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but as you look at this class, everybody kind of wants to know, well, who are some of the guys that obviously you're excited about everybody, but who's a guy that could come in, have a chance to play? This program has done a good job of giving freshmen a chance right off the bat. Who kind of stands out in your minds?
You know, they're all important, as you said, but, you know, we wanted to really recruit a lot of guys up front. You know, we really feel like we need more depth in the offensive line and defensive line. And sometimes those guys, it takes a little bit longer for them to develop, and we need to do a good job of developing those guys. But, you know, Dominic London, a transfer, you want him to come in, and he'll be here this spring, and he's got, you know, we got to get him to work, to learn our system and to see how he fits best into our system. And we need him to develop and be a factor here in 2019. You know, we think Luke Skokna has a lot of talent and is explosive, and with the skill guys, you never know, but we would see him as somebody that could come in and be an impact. And then, you know, on the defensive side, we just think that Sammy Fort has a lot of talent. You know, we like the way Jason Coley moves. Matt Kushel really is a good mover, and he'll be in at the safety position. But a number of these guys, you know, Billy Revere is a guy that is physically strong at this point, and until you get him here and start working with him, you aren't quite sure. But, you know, those are some of the names that stick out. Elijah Beach has grown some, and, you know, the D-line with graduating 3 guys, you know, there's going to be some opportunities for reps there. And the one thing that really changed this past year, when you can play guys 4 games and not lose a year eligibility, that really helps. We can test some of these guys early in the year or use them once they're ready in our system.
Yeah, that was a huge thing this year because that was kind of an unknown coming in of how that wrinkle, that freshman 4 rule would change some strategy. But for this program, that made a big difference, getting a chance to see some of those kids, getting a little taste for them for college football and you an idea of what they look like in a UND uniform on game day.
Yeah, you know, we had 2 guys, Matt Wilecko and Garrett Mogg, that we pulled the shirts on, and they played more than 4, but we had 10 other guys that got some type of action that saved a year of eligibility. Some of those were 4 games, some were 3, and some were even less than that. But even if we needed to create some depth on a special team unit, we were able to take advantage of that new rule, and we we felt like, hey, it's a rule that you need to take advantage of and use it to test guys and also help your football team.
Yeah, Matt and Garrett, of course, making a big impact as true freshmen. There are a number of red shirts, though, who, again, we kind of got to see a little bit of some of those guys this past year, but that typically are the group that do make an impact. Not necessarily the true freshmen, but the guys that had a year under their belts. Talk about that group of kids who were 2018 signees that are going to be big impact guys in 2019.
Yeah, we think those guys had a good fall, and then they're going to have to get a lot of reps this spring, and their winter is going to be really important for them. You know, Donnie Ventrelli showed a lot in the offensive line, and, you know, Otis Way got some reps at running back, and then we have some guys in the secondary that played a bit. Caden Cochran was one, Caden White, some of those guys at linebacker, and they just got to really take a big jump here to show that they're ready to play and contribute. But we were really pleased with our 18 signing class, and we're pleased with how they went about their business developing this fall. But it's a huge spring for them coming up here in a huge winter training session. Yeah,
and those things, of course, are already almost underway, really. Winter lifting, all that stuff is underway for this group looking ahead to 2019. When you look at the 19 schedule and you take a look at what's coming up down the pike, again, you're still an independent, but playing a Big Sky schedule. You have a very difficult non-conference schedule, some exciting games again, North Dakota State, Sam Houston State, two big traditional powers, and then when you look down the list, you know, it's 5 teams that have made the FCS playoffs, including the 2 that are playing for the national title here in a couple of weeks. When you look at that schedule, that's got to excite you as a coach to see the type of challenges that your team's going to get to face coming up in 2019.
Well, it should excite you. We get to play the top teams in the country, and you know, we start out with Drake, and that's a team that we've really got to focus on because they played Iowa State to really a draw, the last game of the season for them. And have a lot of respect for their players, and they get a lot of good guys that just really love football, and that's what I saw watching that game. I happened to watch that game just because we knew it was going to be our first opponent coming up in 19, but then to go on the road and play North Dakota State, very challenging game. Sam Houston returns our trip from down there. They're, you know, always been a top team in the country. And we have an open date, and then we get into a Big Sky schedule. Even though we're an independent, it's a Big Sky schedule, and you go out to Cheney, Washington to take on Eastern Washington. So a lot of big-time games, and that should really motivate us throughout our winter and throughout our spring ball and summer. And, you know, we talk about day by day. That's the way we have to do it. Each and every day, got to get better at one thing here, one thing there. And that just isn't, you know, the on-the-field stuff. How do we improve our football team to have a more cohesive unit, whether it's offense, defense, and then how do we get that team to gel as one team? And that's really going to be a focus as we move forward.
Yeah, those of course are things that this coaching staff and this team will be working on between now and the start of spring ball, which again is not really all that far off. When you look at some of the things that need to happen, besides those chemistry things, the normal type things you need for a team to be successful, where does this team need to grow to be one win better, 2 wins better, and make an FCS playoff spot for the second time in 4 years this next season?
Yeah, and we were disappointed in our finish, and I think we've got to be a better football team by being more consistent, whether it's on offense, defense, or special teams. You know, we had special teams breakdowns that we really need to get corrected, and that's going to be a point of emphasis this year. I think our kickers improved. You know, they were both true. One was a freshman, one was a true freshman, and I thought they made improvements throughout the year. Now we hope they need to leave off where they finished the season because they were better throughout the year. So that's one thing. Offensively, we just got to be more consistent moving the football, and we really got to be better in the second half of games. Once we get to halftime, you know, we had several good starts to games, and we need to be more consistent throughout the entire game. And we definitely got to be better in the fourth quarter on defense. You know, we take a lot of pride in no fourth quarter scores, and that didn't take place in our stretch run this year. And you know, we missed by this much, and we can't miss by that much because the vision for this program is to get in the tournament and have an opportunity to be a national champion. And the only way to do that is you got to get into the tournament.
Yeah, and that's, again, coming up just 1 game short. Still one of the last 3 teams on the outside looking in when the FCS selection committee made their choices, but obviously an extra motivation thing for this team now moving forward. You know, you mentioned trying to find more consistency with the offense. I do want to ask, Danny Freund now moving from receivers coach to that offensive coordinator position. Talk to us why this was the right hire. Why is Danny the right guy to lead this offense moving forward?
Well, I've known Danny for quite some time. Was coaching at Duluth when he was the quarterback, and always respected his leadership abilities as a young person. You can tell when the quarterback instills a lot of energy and passion for the game into the football team. But once we got here, we retained Danny, and he's had that passion and leadership ability that I just feel like he can really inject some real energy into our football team, not just the offensive football team, but into our team, and really looking forward to his leadership. I know he's had an opportunity to address the offense and meet with all the offensive players, and that's what we're looking for, is some energy. I think he's going to have a few different ideas that we like. We've got to be more consistent. We're going to really work hard to make our quarterbacks more a focal point of the offense and fit it to what they do best, and that's what we're doing moving forward. And we made good progress the last 4 and 5 years here. We made progress, but I just feel like he will take us to another level.
Yeah, well, we're excited to see what he brings to the table, calling the plays coming up this next season. Last thing for you, Coach. Obviously, now that this initial early signing period will come to a close and you check that box off the list of to-do, what comes next? What's next for this program moving forward?
Well, we've got to name a wide receiver coach and an offensive line coach, and we're in the process of doing that right now, and they're very important hires. A lot of good guys that have applied and contacted us, and we've got to make some tough decisions because we're working through that as we speak right now. But the big thing is finding the right fit for the University of North Dakota, and that's really important to me, and it's important for the rest of the staff that we find the right fit for those 2 positions as we move forward. And well, best of luck on finalizing those hires, and congratulations on a great day, big-time signing class for Bubba Schweigert and his staff. All right, thank you, Alex. Thanks to Bubba. Well, coming up after the break here on the UND Football Signing Day, defensive coordinator Eric Schmidt joins us in studio. That's coming up next here on MidcoSN. Welcome back to the Midco Sports Network UND Football Signing Day Special 2019, even though it is still 2018. Of course, we're pleased to be joined by defensive coordinator for the Fighting Hawks, Eric Schmidt. Another big-time class for you guys this year on the defensive side of the ball, Eric.
Yeah, really happy. Our guys did a great job of building relationships with a number of these guys. This is a year-long process for us. We've talked to even some of these guys as they came in on their visits a month ago here or a few weeks ago that we've started to build on their teammates, guys that'll come in next year and all that kind of stuff. So the way college football is now, it's kind of a year-round cycle. It happens all the time. So feel really good that we were able to get a plan together and make sure that it happened here today.
Yeah, you mentioned the recruits doing some of the recruiting, and we saw this a little bit last year with a guy like Garrett Mogg reaching out to guys on social media and trying to get more people to jump on board. Kind of the same thing this year with guys going out and trying to get their teammates to come. We've seen a lot of teammate pairs make their way to Grand Forks in recent years. A similar story again this year.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Once you get guys connected to your program, I think not only the guys that have already committed to you can be good ambassadors for your program. It's also the guys that are on campus. I thought our guys did a great job once we got guys here. It was crucial for, a guy like Sammy Ford, who was going to take a visit in his home state the year after that. He really, or the week after, he really, felt good about the guys that were in our locker room already, our freshmen, our sophomores, our juniors, some of the younger guys that host those guys, and then also the guys that were, part of his class there. So those guys do a great job. They did a great job again this year selling our place, and I think, you get it from a coach's point of view, but to get it from the guys that are living it day in and day out, I think that's always, a perspective that guys that are coming in, they want to make sure that they hear from those guys and that everything that we're saying is what they're saying too as well.
Yeah, when you look at the recruits that you brought in and the guys that you typically target, when we spoke yesterday, you kind of mentioned with this group of 13, tenacious were words that kept coming up. Football guys, fighters, guys that are multi-sport athletes. Those are kind of the boxes that you're looking for, and it feels like this group really fits all of those molds.
Yeah, I think toughness is something that we always try to evaluate. There's not always a metric to be able to evaluate that, but it's something that we talk to a lot of guys with. Competitiveness. I think that's something too, guys that are looking to to find guys that can help push them and surround themselves with guys that can help push them. So those are definitely two things. And then I think the biggest thing is, our guys, we did a good job early of targeting a lot of guys, and the guys that we targeted that we thought were really good players, those were guys that you know, a lot of times guys start to get picked off. Big Ten teams start to come in on guys and stuff like that. And we were fortunate that, you know, the guys that we have built relationships all the way since last year at this time and got a chance to be able to see in the summer and evaluate. Those guys stayed with us, and especially down the stretch here as other schools in the league try to take runs at those guys, we were able to hold on to them because of the, you know, the longevity of our relationship with those guys.
Yeah, well, let's talk some specifics about this group. And you know, we've mentioned earlier that up front was going to be an area that you look to fill some holes and try and build some depth in that 3-4 scheme. You come with 5 guys in this 2019 commitment list. Talk about that group and what stands out.
Yeah, I think really versatile. You got some bigger guys. Their body types are more college ready. You know, guys like Tanner Thorsness, Elijah Beach are a couple guys there that we feel. Stephen Keach too as well, are guys that I think are you know, bigger, longer, more, I would say, college ready early in their career. And then we have some other guys that have some versatility. I mean, Isaac Moore's a really good pass rusher for us, a guy that we're super excited about. You know, he's a guy that can really, you know, change the game off the edge, I feel like. And then a guy like Luke Lennon, who has a number of you know, traits that we like, multi-sport guy, a guy that can play 2 or 3 positions. So I think it always starts up there. You got to have guys, enough guys up there too as well. Your depth up there has got to be able to, you know, to last a season. So we felt like that's a huge need for us, especially at the nose spot. So having Elijah be able to come in here, and a guy that we really targeted as a top guy for us early in the process, and to get him all the way through to today was really important for our staff. So looking forward to getting those guys here. Feel like, hey, we could still take one more guy in the interior yet if we found the right guy. Maybe even an older guy there, but these guys are guys that will definitely add some depth and add some competition into our defensive line.
Yeah, as you move from the front to the back, linebacker, again, always an important position for this team. And same thing, bringing in guys who played linebacker in high school, but also played a little running back. That versatility, again, kind of stepping up. Athletes that you're bringing into the table.
Yeah, I always feel like, hey, a huge trait in recruiting is if you can find a guy that maybe is just not quite good enough to be able to play running back here. You have to be obviously pretty special to be able to play running back at this level. Those guys are probably your best linebackers. A guy like Donnell Rogers, you know, he didn't play any defense when he was in high school, but a really good high school running back. Even Jalen Morrison as a defensive lineman was a bigger high school running back. So that's what these guys are. You know, you look at Caden Wolski, he's a difference maker at the Class A level here in North Dakota, a great wrestler, tough kid, you know, different when he hits guys out there. You can tell, you know, he enjoys the physical part of football. That's obviously important nowadays. Navratil, Josh is a multi-sport guy, maybe one of the best running backs in his area. He fits the mold to a T as far as the traits that we look for. And same thing with Luke Herzog. He's a guy that we brought in, hey, is he a safety? Is he an offensive player? You know, it's the same thing we said 2 years ago when Jackson Turner showed up here was, hey, what is he? He's something. We'll find a spot for him. You know, and that's the type of guys that you have that, hey, they have all the traits, and then you're able to pencil those guys in at a number of spots, and they typically become really good players for you.
Yeah, well, let's work some of the names you mentioned, guys like Jackson Turner, and those guys have kind of worked out so far in the system. So when you know you're good enough to play at this level, you guys will typically figure out where they fit best.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to find guys that have the right traits that you're looking for, guys that can run, move their feet. You know, our strength guys are going to get you stronger. You're going to lift here for 5 years, so I think sometimes that stuff can be a little bit overrated where, hey, this guy benches this much or squats this much. Well, the other guys are going to catch up. They've been busy playing baseball or running track or playing basketball. That's the stuff that we want to see, is guys that are competitive, athletic, do athletic movements. You know, they're springy, they can jump, they can control their flexibility. When you can find athletes, you know, they're going to be able to pencil in somewhere for you down the road.
Yeah. Speaking of athletes, when you look in the secondary, it's a very athletic group, 3 cornerbacks and a safety coming on board. What stands out about those 4 young men?
Well, you know, a guy like, I just go down like a guy like Sammy Fort, obviously, you know, body type is perfect, I think, as far as what we're looking for. Obviously, I think that the thing that separates most teams between, you know, the really, really elite teams at our level and the teams that are maybe just a step away is offensive line play and DB play. So that's something that we're going to continue to work on, but Sammy's a really important get for us. I think Hayley Buchholz is a really competitive kid. He just got done playing an all-star game yesterday against, you know, high-end talent, or 2 nights ago against high-end talent throughout the country. So really like that kid's demeanor. Jason Coley's the same way. I mean, he's like, when he gets to a camp, he's in the front of the line all day long. He's not shying away from, hey, you know, find me the guy that everybody likes here, and I'm going to show you what I can do against them. And then Matt Kushell's the same way. I mean, he's a guy that we're really excited about. He is a really good athlete, a guy that, you know, really good running back once again in high school, and a guy that we feel can really be a good player at our level. So those guys are all guys I think are competitive, athletic, you know, we need really good play in the secondary. That's something that's really important, I think.
Yeah, well, when you look at this group as they're coming in, and obviously these guys won't be specifically replacing some of the guys that have moved on, because you do lose some really important players on defense, but how does this group fit in with where you see the 3-4 scheme and where you're at moving forward into 2019 and beyond?
I think they all fit. You know, that's a big part of it. A lot of times it's not just, you know, trying to recruit, you know, the high-profile guy, the star guy, all that kind of stuff. It's, hey, what's the right fit for our defense, for our community, for our school, that kind of stuff. And all these guys, I think, you know, at the end of the day, when you talk about how recruiting really heats up towards the end here, and guys are always looking, I think, for, you know, to try to fill out their class the right way, these guys felt comfortable saying no, you know, in those situations to other places because of what I just talked about. Socially, it was a good fit for them. Academically, you know, it was right. And then athletically, I think these guys really feel like, hey, we can come in here and make a difference. So, you know, obviously excited about it. It's always an important day, I think, for us. And we feel like we have a number of players here that, you know, like I said earlier, this class is probably a little bit more college ready. There's not as many maybe projects or guys that you're going to have to wait 2, 3, 4 years down the road. We feel like there's some guys here that you know, they look the part here day one walking on campus.
Yeah, well, exciting news for Fighting Hawks fans with this group coming in. Coach, thanks again for the time, Eric.
Yep,
congratulations on the signing day, Spas. Well, former Mandan Brave Eric Schmidt knows a little bit about staying in state to play his college ball. For more now on 7 new Fighting Hawks who have chosen to represent their home state here at the next level, here's MidcoSN's North Dakota high school prep expert, Jody Norsted.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Bubba Schweigert has already hit some home runs in his home state when it comes to recruiting, and he's hoping to bolster that number with this latest group. We'll go in alphabetical order, and when you see Shanley's Hayley Buchholz, you think playmaker. I remember talking to Troy Madden when Hayley was a sophomore, and he raved about his athleticism and told me that he was a future Division I player. He was right, and I can tell you one thing, speed won't be an issue for him at the next level. He's usually one of the fastest players on the field on Friday nights. He also has pretty good size at 6'2", 180 pounds. He put up nearly 700 yards receiving his senior season and hauled in 7 touchdown passes. He also intercepted 5 balls as a senior, including one in the Deacon State Championship victory over St. Mary's. The accolades, they're there too. He was named the Class 2A Senior Athlete of the Year and just played in the Blue-Gray All-American Bowl down at the Cowboys Stadium in Dallas, Texas on Monday. I got to know Hayley really well this year after doing a story on how he deals with dyslexia. He is one of the most well-spoken and kindest young men I've ever met. UND is getting a really quality individual, and I give Bubba Schweigert and his staff credit, even in the recruiting process. They laid out a plan of how they'll help Hayley with his transition to college on and off the field with, of course, the needs that he'll have with his learning disorder. I'm looking forward to seeing what Buchholz does at the next level. Now, Bubba Schweigert also dipped into the West Fargo Packer program for a couple of commits. Luke Lennon, the nephew of former UND head coach Dale Lennon, is on board, and same with preferred walk-on E.J. Langstaff. Langstaff is an intriguing talent. He was known more for his defense after a strong junior season, but UND initially plans to use him as an offensive lineman. Langstaff really blossomed in his junior year and caught UND's eye at summer camp. Now he's 6'5", 250 pounds. The Fighting Hawks will want him to pack on the pounds to that frame, but he's a big man with speed. Gotta love that. Jay Gibson told me they would have loved to use him as a tight end, but they needed help on the offensive line, and that gives you an idea of how athletic and quick he is. Lennon, who's 6'5", 220 pounds, will probably get a crack at defensive end first, but again, I could see him being a linebacker or tight end too. He led the Packers with 51 tackles this past fall en route to being named first team All-State, and he's been a fixture in the starting lineups, guys, since he was a sophomore, which is pretty rare under Coach Gibson. He made over 150 tackles in his 3-year prep career and was very durable too. He's one of those guys that if he puts in the work, which I don't see being an issue, he could make a really significant impact in the program. Now, Milner North Sergeant's Adam Newstall was one of those under-the-radar recruits, I think. But after getting a chance to watch him play this season, I see the potential. First off, he's a big boy already at 6'3", 285 pounds. Once Nate Buchholz gets his hands on him, he can help him get even bigger and stronger. The Bulldogs went from a 3-win team in 2017 to a 7-win team in 2018, and he was a big reason why. helping pave the way for running back TJ Johnson to have some big games and doing a nice job in pass pro. He also finished with 9 tackles for loss on the defensive side of the ball. Another good get for UND is Tanner Thorsness, who comes from one of the top defensive units in the state in 2018, Bismarck Century. Thorsness and the Patriots limited teams to just 13 points per game this fall. Thorsness made 58 tackles and 9 sacks as a junior, and then followed that up with an outstanding senior season, finishing with 11 sacks on his way to a second consecutive first-team All-State selection. He's a talented kid, and if you have a conversation with him for a few minutes, you already realize how much of a natural leader he is. He was the first in-state commit for the Fighting Hawks and told me back in the summer that it was the way that the UND coaching staff made him feel like family that meant the most. Carrington's Caden Wolski, he's got to be one of my favorite players to watch. He plays that smash mouth style from the linebacker position, a little bit old school. Wolski leaves the Cardinals football program as a 3-time All-State selection and helped lead the program to a 15-4 overall record the past 2 seasons combined. At 6'1", 200 pounds, he packs a punch with every hit that he makes. I can assure you that. Wolski also won the 182-pound Class B State Wrestling Championship a year ago. Now, Park River Fortville Lincoln has produced some great athletes over the years, and Adam Zavalny is the next in line. You put him on the football field, basketball court, or baseball field, and he's going to be one of the best players out there. He helped lead the Aggies to a state championship in baseball as a sophomore, and I remember him hitting a huge home run in that game. This year, now, he played quarterback for the football team, but his head coach, Robert Gall, admits that he was kind of playing out of position. He's just their best player, so they ran a lot of read option stuff. He was able to rush for nearly 1,000 yards, pass for about 440 yards. With his 6'4", 190-pound frame, though, I think he'll be more in the mold of wide receiver at the next level. And although he didn't get to show off his hands much on offense this year, he did manage to snag 14 interceptions in his junior and senior years combined. So he has pretty good hands. All in all, it's a good class of in-state commits for the Fighting Hawks. Now we wait and see what type of impact they'll make at the next level. Alex, back to you.
Thanks, Jody, and thank you for stopping by West Fargo High School earlier this morning. Jody was there to get reaction from 2 of the young men that he just told you about, Luke Lennon and E.J. Langstaff. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I remember as a kid going to tailgates, and the atmosphere of the games was pretty cool. And, you know, I always wanted to play D1 football, so it was kind of a dream of mine, so that was like a goal, so I'm proud that I made it.
I mean, a couple of years ago, I wasn't even thinking about past high school football. I was just trying to help my team and find my role on the team. It was really cool to finally put pen to paper and finish off this recruiting process.
Congrats to those 2 young men on finalizing their commitment to play here at UND. Well, tied with North Dakota for the state with the most high school signees in this class, not surprisingly, is Minnesota. The land of 10,000 lakes has produced a number of top players for North Dakota football over the years, and that's not set to change anytime soon. With thoughts on 4 of the Minnesota products coming to Grand Forks in the fall on the defensive side of the football, here's Jim Paulsen of the Minneapolis Star-Tribune.
It's definitely a very physical group, and you've got a lot of guys that are athletes first, and you can fit them in the positions you need to fit them in. And I really, really like the defensive player from Two Harbors, Stephen Keach. I mean, he's got this 6'5", 245. He's got this long body that looks like it could handle another 40 or 50 pounds just fine. Explodes off the ball. His quickness allows him to beat offensive linemen, at least at that level that he played at pretty easily. I know he was playing in the interior for Two Harbors for much of his career up there, because he just dominated the offensive lineman up there. But with his build and his speed and his length, you know, he screams defensive end to me. So watching a kid like this coming off the edge could be special. I think if they develop him right, he can be a real standout for UND. The Navratil kid, Josh Navratil of Pine Island, he's a great all-around athlete. I think Rochester Post-Bulletin named him their all-area player of the year. And that's saying a lot, because Pine Island is not a big school, but he's a kid I think that's projected as being a linebacker, but he's just a terrific athlete. He's got great speed, he's got good ball skills, he's got good instincts, and he's just an all-around football player. I think he's the type of guy that will be in on a lot of plays. He'll be hearing his name called an awful lot. Maybe not as a freshman, because a lot of these kids get redshirted and don't get as much time, but eventually eventually he'll be a stalwart on that defense. The kid from Rocori, Matt Kosciel, is a running back, and they've got him projected as a safety. I mean, he's long, he's lean, he's got good ball skills, and he's another one that's played some running back and been very varied, so he knows both sides of the ball. I think Herzog was the leading tackler on the Cadets team this year, and that Cadets team had a terrific year. They played in the Prep Bowl, lost to Owatonna in the Class 5A finals, and Herzog was a big factor in that. I mean, he's another guy that plays downhill, is aggressive, sniffs out plays very well, and shoots gaps exceptionally. And, you know, kids that come out of St. Thomas Academy are definitely very disciplined players, very smart players. They're going to be where you want them to be, and he's gotten the track record to prove that he can play defense, he can make tackles, he's exactly what you want in a linebacker. I expect to see Herzog, you know, have success in North Dakota as well.
We'll have more from Jim Paulsen coming up after the break, along with a conversation with new UND offensive coordinator Danny Freund, the leader of the Jets. Joins us next here on Midco Sports Network. A live look at UND football team headquarters here in our MidcoSN studios in Grand Forks. A group of guys that have been here since the early morning hours on National Signing Day, at least day one of this early signing period in the middle of December. Danny Freund was in that room just a little bit ago. Danny, by the way, won the award for being first here this morning. First guy through the doors. We appreciate you taking some time this morning, new offensive coordinator for UND.
Appreciate it.
Getting set to enter year number 9 on staff, and you bring in a talented group of guys kind of for your first class as the OC. When you look at this group, I mean, it's a great group of local kids with a ton of speed and a ton of talent.
Yeah, they're guys that we evaluated last summer and have been on since, you know, this time last year when that process starts. But we're excited about the class. Feel like we got a good core of skill guys coming in, and then you combine that with the guys up front. I think that was a focal point for us, was the offensive line, and that's always going to be the core of your offense and how those guys perform. So we're excited about those guys, and looking forward to getting them here on campus.
Yeah, we'll talk about the skill guys first, because that's typically what people want to know. Who's going to be scoring the touchdowns? Who's going to be putting the ball in the end zone? Bringing a couple of running backs, one from a transfer spot in Minnesota, which has been good to this program over the last couple of years, and one out of the state of Illinois with a lot of upside as a freshman.
Yeah, Dominic's a guy that we're excited about. He's a Twin Cities kid, had some connections with guys on our team, but just looking for a new opportunity to contribute. He'll have 3 years for us. He's going to come in and compete for playing time right away. And then Luke Skoka out of Illinois, a kid we saw at camp last summer, and Coach Agnew did a really good job recruiting and staying on. And he's a guy, very similar ability to, you know, Santiago, a guy that you can put in the slot and throw the ball to, and a guy you can hand it to, but you're just one of those guys you want to get the ball to because he's a playmaker. So we're excited about those two kind of replacing the 2 seniors that we just graduated.
Yeah, obviously important to fill the shoes. Obviously not expected these guys to carry all the load because you've got some people coming back, but I think people were excited to see not just 1 but 2 experienced running backs coming into the program. When you look at the receiver spots, 2 kind of different kids. Kristen Cochran from the Detroit area, Adam Zavalny from Huron State.
Yep.
You like to diversify on the Jets, don't you, Dan?
Yeah, well, it's at the wide receiver position. It's not like a basketball team. You can't have a bunch of point guards or a bunch of big guys. You really want to diversify and have a good mix there in your class. And we didn't graduate a ton. We graduated Luke, but bringing in Christian's a guy that can stretch the field vertically, but also a guy you can get on the perimeter and he can make you miss. So he's a complete wide receiver, comes from a really good high school program in the Detroit area. So we're looking for him to come in and do some big things here. And then Adam's a local guy from Park River, a good 3-sport athlete. We like those guys that play multiple sports in high school and has a lot of upside. 6'4" kid that's athletic, that can dunk, you know, and we've had success with some of those types coming out of the region. So important to keep adding depth there, and we're gonna, you know, hopefully expand as far as what we do in the passing game and really utilize those guys. And it's important that we continue to build depth at wide receiver.
Those guys won't be asked probably to do much right away because you do bring back 3 really talented kids with a ton of experience in those positions. And really 4, honestly. You've got a great core of guys in that spot, but a couple guys who will be seniors that you'll need to replace at some point.
No doubt. We've got experience coming back. You always got to build depth in terms of what you're doing in every position, but we're looking for a lot of leadership from guys like Wanzik, Toivonen, and the guys we got coming back.
Yeah, up front, 6 new offensive linemen. This is always, you know, the key to this team. It seems to be getting guys up front that can progress, move their feet well. A lot of big dudes coming in that can play multiple positions up front on the offensive line.
No question. Having that versatility, you know, is important. Guys that can play guard, can play center. But you look at Downs, Lavelle, Linderman, the guys from North Dakota, New Still, and Langstaff. You're building quality depth there, and they're guys that we think have a chance to develop and play. And then you got the big guy from Wisconsin, Jansen, who's probably a little bit under-recruited and has a ton of upside in terms of his development. So we're excited about that core, because I think no matter what you do on offense, it starts up front in terms of what kind of mentality and toughness you build in that room. And we're going to get a coach in here, and we're going to push those guys and develop them and really demand it out of them. But I think we're excited about that group because we've seen them on campus, in summer camp and stuff, and they've proven I think they can do it and develop here.
Yeah, good to see again, just numbers and big numbers, both from height and weight standpoint, but also numbers that you can put onto the field in a couple of years because you've got so much experience coming back up front. It's hopefully not going to be a Matt Waletzko situation, who was great as a true freshman, but these guys won't probably be called upon to fill those roles this season.
That's a really developmental position. You really want to play those guys when they're sophomores, juniors, seniors, get them in the weight room, develop them. That's such a technique position. But we feel like they have the tools, with the feet, the athleticism, and we're going to develop that toughness up front and really do a good job building there, because that's where you win.
Yeah, I do want to ask again, going into your first season, calling the plays, setting up this offense, it's still fresh, of course, but when you look out and look at the personnel you've got, how do you want to attack this offensive coordinator position? How do you want to move the football and score points?
Yeah, it's gonna really depend on, we're gonna build it around the quarterback and what he does well, but some of the beliefs that I have, it's getting the ball out quick on offense and letting the quarterback make those decisions, and he's got to stay on his feet. We'll find ways for him to build confidence, and part of that's running the football. We're gonna have to run the football and also find creative ways to do that and attack down the field. I think it's important to get explosive plays, get chunk plays, and we've got some guys coming back that have proven they can do that. But we're gonna attack teams and probably play with a little different tempo at times and try to keep the defense on their heels and kind of dictate to them how we're going to play. Yeah,
taking the fight to the opposition. Well, fans are looking forward, I think, to seeing that coming up this fall. Danny, thanks again for the time. Congrats on a great class.
Thanks a lot, Alex. Appreciate it.
As discussed, UND has looked to the state of Minnesota for talent on the offensive side of the ball again during this recruiting cycle, with a look at 3 of those new Fighting Hawks that Danny was just talking about, beginning with tight end Billy Revere. Here again is Jim Paulsen.
That's a name that I think people are excited about. And down here, he was our preseason Metro first team tight end out of Wayzata. Now, he was injured for much of the year, so he didn't get a whole lot of playing time. I think he came back late in the season. But he's definitely got a lot of skills. Very physical. I think right now, at this point in his career, because he didn't play much this season, he was better in the run game as a blocking tight end. But he does have good hands. He runs very well, and he's definitely a very determined kid. He's got the bloodlines for sure, and he's got the determination to play football. He's a good, hard-working kid who loves to fish. He'll fit up so well up in Grand Forks. Downs, I thought was going to have a terrific breakout year, and he got sidelined by a concussion. I think he missed 3 games, and you really noticed it in Monticello when he wasn't there. As soon as he came back from the concussion, they went on a 4-game winning streak. He's a strong player. He comes off the ball well. He led Monticello in pancake blocks with about 60, and that was missing 3 games. And Downs is also a really intelligent player. I think that's what stands out the most. He's got a body that can put on him another 20 or 30 pounds and be a solid offensive lineman there. The Linderman kid from Roseau, I haven't seen him play, but I know that he was a terrific player up there, a two-way player, and it's his lifelong dream of being playing for UND. UND seems like they're right there on the cusp of breaking through. Hopefully this is a group that can help them get there.
Big thanks to Jim Paulsen of the Star Tribune for the insight all morning. Well, hey, we're going to step away for a moment, but when the UND Football Signing Day special returns, we'll look ahead to what's to expect with Tom Miller for 2019. UND Football Signing Day special here on MidcoSN, starting to wrap up, but finishing with a bang with Tom Miller of the Grand Forks Herald joining us as always. Tom, thanks again for the time this morning. Fun to come and hang out with these coaches all morning. You've been here since, just like they have, since the early morning hours. What do you get from a morning like this when you're sitting out there with the guys in the bullpen?
I think you get a feel for how they view the fits of the guys that you've seen commit. We like to report on the commitments as they come in, but you don't get to hear from the coaching staff how exactly they think maybe that'll fit into their system. So you get a kind of a better understanding, and it's kind of fun to hear what everybody's got to say about them.
Yeah, well, when you look at this group right now, 22 freshmen, 1 transfer in the mix at the moment, what stands out to you about this 2019 class?
Well, I think, as UND looks toward getting into the Missouri Valley Football Conference, that league, has a reputation for having strong offensive and defensive lines. And I think as you look at this list, you got a lot of names along the offensive line and defensive line that come from some of those strong areas that UND likes to recruit, and I think that's a good base to get ready for 2020 and, as they move forward, being able to compete with those physical programs.
Yeah, those are 2 areas where North Dakota, on the one side, has a lot of experience coming back. On the defensive line, not as much. But as we look at your projected starters, because it's fun to kind of look ahead to the fall, there's a lot of names that people, especially on offense, are familiar with coming back in 2019.
Yeah, I think what's left to be determined here is how new offensive coordinator Danny Freund sees this offense. Does that benefit certain players? Does it not benefit others? But this list, like you said, is a lot of names that people recognize, and I think, especially on the offensive line, there's going to be some healthy competition for some of those spots. But everybody has plenty of experience on that list there.
Yeah, and quickly as we look at the defense, some names to replace certainly, but a lot of talent back here for 2019.
Yeah, losing Deion Harris at corner, people are going to notice that quite a bit, but Hayden Blubaugh has had 2 years of experience now, and Evan Holm, has plenty of experience as well. So I think, at safety might be one area that UND will have some competition to see who could challenge those starters.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the insight as always, Tom. Be sure to read his stuff online at grandforksherald.com. Check out Tom's blog, which is always fun to poke in on. We appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Tom Miller. Well, of course, signing day happening right now. Coaches happy inside the MidcoSN conference room, wrapping things up, getting ready to go meet some fans coming up later today and celebrate this class. Their work, of course, just getting started as you look at the schedule for the spring and the fall. Spring football is just around the corner. Winter workouts are going on right now. National Signing Day Part 2 comes up on February the 6th. Spring game coming up from a newly developed HPC with bleachers this year. We're excited about that on April the 12th, and we're not that far away from August 31st and the season opener taking on Drake here at the Alaris Center. Well, that's going to do it for this year's UND Signing Day special. A big thanks to the UND coaching staff for posting up here all morning. Special thanks as well to all of our MidcoSN staff that were a part of this show. Marty Mueller, Jeremy Klein, Mike Derman, Jack Neeson, Jake Tracy, Chris Regenball, Rod Scheuring, Quentin Coulter, Corey Wilson, our entire engineering team for making this show possible. On behalf of that group, I'm Alex Heinert saying thanks for watching and congrats again to all the new members of the Fighting Hawk football family. A day to remember and to be proud of.